Hello, I'm Bakhtiar Sonov and you're watching A News Now. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Negotiations continue as the United States and Ukraine rework a peace plan they say was too favorable to Moscow. Suicide bombers storm a paramilitary base in Pakistan, killing 3 personnel and injuring several others. And Azerbaijan's Shusha hosted an Azerbaijan-Turkish think tank forum, bringing together top policy experts to deepen cooperation and align on key regional and global challenges. Talks in Geneva between the United States and Ukraine have produced what both sides describe as significant progress on a revised peace framework to end the war with Russia. An updated draft is now on the table, and negotiators say it brings a just and lasting peace closer. Let's take a look.
The US and Ukraine say they have made significant progress on a revised peace framework after hours of talks in Geneva. According to a joint readout, the updated framework now incorporates Ukraine's key demands: security guarantees, sovereignty, economic recovery, and infrastructure protection. Ukrainian officials say the revised draft better reflects Kyiv's national interests. Washington's delegation, led by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, said most unresolved points in the 28-point plan had been substantially narrowed, though further work is still needed on issues involving NATO and Europe's role.
We arrived here today with one goal, and the goal was to take, is 28 points or 26 points, depending on which version as it continued to evolve, and try to narrow the ones that were open items. And we have achieved that today in a very substantial way. Now, obviously, like any final agreement, they'll have to be agreed upon by the presidents. And there are a couple issues that we need to continue to work on. I can tell you, that I feel very optimistic that we can get something done here because we made a tremendous amount of progress today.
European advisors from France, Germany and the UK joined parts of the talks, offering counter-proposals, rejecting troop limits and territorial concessions. President Volodymyr Zelensky said continued dialogue with Washington is vital, stressing unity behind Ukraine's national position.
It is important that we do talk to the Americans, and we are getting signals that President Trump's team is hearing us. The unity of Ukrainians in defending our independence and sovereignty is what works, and I expect everyone to follow the state's position, not opposing signals.
Both sides say consultations will continue in the coming days, with final decisions to be made by Presidents Trump and Zelensky.
Ukrainians are raising fresh doubts about ongoing Geneva discussions aimed at ending the conflict, with many worried the ideas being explored could leave the country disadvantaged. Kyiv's leadership, however, insists the diplomatic push remains constructive and says work with international allies will continue.
Ukrainians voiced strong skepticism on Monday over new peace talks in Geneva, involving Ukraine, the United States and European partners. Many residents said they doubt the discussions will end the war with Russia.
I don't believe that there will be a lasting peace after these negotiations, because there is a side that cannot be trusted.
US President Donald Trump's special plan is, in general, a capitulation for Ukraine. I think the Ukrainian people will not agree. Even if they sign, they need to be implemented. The Ukrainian people will be the ones to do it, and they do not agree with this.
Some residents welcomed the renewed international focus on ending the conflict, but many said they have little confidence that any new agreement would hold, pointing to past attempts that failed to deliver lasting results.
I believe that it must come to something. It cannot continue like this. Under certain conditions they should stop this war, but I don't know under which. But giving up Ukrainian land is not right either.
First, this is already some positive news for me. Thank God that somehow the world community reacted to these shameful 28 points, because it would have simply meant Ukraine's capitulation.
People in Kiev told reporters they worry the proposals on the table could leave Ukraine in a weaker position. Their concerns grew after earlier draft ideas reportedly included giving up territory and placing limits on Ukraine's military plans. Ukraine's chief negotiator, Andriy Yermak, described the latest round of talks as highly productive. He said discussions would continue in the coming days.
While peace talks continued, Russian forces launched a massive overnight drone attack on Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. Local officials say 4 people were killed and 12 others injured. Video from the scene shows emergency crews battling large fires and pulling bodies from the rubble. Regional authorities say the injured include 2 children aged 11 and 12, as rescue teams continue clearing debris from the targeted residential area. Well, earlier today I spoke to Lieutenant General Marco Sironia, a distinguished military analyst and former senior commander, who told us what this deal means for Ukraine.
It seems from the words of Marco Rubio and the Yermak from Ukraine that was very productive yesterday, the meeting. Let's see how the things are going to proceed. We know that the initial plan that was handed over by the United States to Ukraine and to the Europeans, it was not good for Ukraine and for the Europeans, as it was said yesterday and Saturday, and due to two main questions, and you have already spoke about that. It's the question of territories, how to handle the territories in the future after the ceasefire. And the issues of sovereignty of Ukraine, of course. It's the top numbers of the armed forces. It's the Ukraine should not have some kind of military assets and things like that. In this plan, we know that has been settled. It seems by Witkoff and Dmitriev some 1 month ago or something like that. And the main problem of the initial proposal is that is based, in my view, and from others, in a Russia unreality and an American weakness. So the Russian reality is that the narrative that is behind the proposal is that it was not Russia that invaded Ukraine. The war is the main guilties of war is the West and Ukraine, something that it's difficult to understand. And the other unreality is that seems that Russia it's near to have a military victory in Ukraine. It's not true, as we know. So it's the main point. And of course, when I say American weakness is that Donald Trump is having, as we know, internal problems, very huge problems due to several things, and he needs to urgently have a peace plan for Ukraine. And so that's the American weakness. The other point of American weakness is that behind all of these relations with Russia is big business, as we know, for few people in the United States and few people in Russia. That's the main problem that is behind this initial proposal.
General Sironia, Ukraine and several European states have expressed concern that the original 28-point plan favors Russia. What elements of the plan are most problematic?
The most problematic is the initial plan was the proposal of Russia to gain territory. As we say in the office, not in the military operation. So they want all the rest of the Donbass, and of course the incorporation, the definitive incorporation of all the land that Russia is now occupying, definitively in the Russia lands or Russian Federation land, something that is not acceptable for Ukrainians, and not only for Ukraine. It is something that is against international law and the UN Charter, as we know, because inviolability or no violation of borders, it's something that is very, very much written in the UN Charter. So it's something that is illegal under the point of view of international law. The other is sovereignty aspects that Russia was trying to condition it the Ukrainians for the future. We have problems also with the reconstruction, who is going to pay the Russian for the assets and other things, but things that have been changed, it seems, in the second draft that is going to be continuous discussing today.
And if Kiev were to accept territorial concessions, how would that reshape the military balance and future security architecture in Eastern Europe?
The second draft that was discussed yesterday concerning the security guarantees involve a more huge, more bigger framework. Most probably an accord or an agreement at the European with the United States, the European countries, and Russia with a framework for the future. Something that we have seen in '75 with the Finland agreement, something like that at the time with the Soviet Union, but something that should address all the security issues in Europe involving Russia and Europeans and United States, of course. The concession of territories is something that is not acceptable. We know. But the other point of the security guarantees that the Russians don't want is the eventual presence of allied force of Ukraine inside Ukrainian territory, and not any presence of strong military assets like airplanes and missiles, long-range missiles, and things on that. Something that Ukraine was not able to, and is not able to accept, of course.
The plan reportedly includes limits on the size of Ukraine's armed forces. How realistic is such a provision while the conflict remains unresolved?
It's not correct, of course. First of all, in the top of that is the issue of sovereignty. So it's not the plan does not say that the Russian armed forces should have 1 million or 5,000 or something like that. So it's not correct to address a top limit of the amount of Ukrainian forces. That is not possible. So nevertheless, the second draft has 800,000 militaries. What is something that is near the reality? It is the top, of course, is the maximum, I suppose, that Ukraine can generate. So it's something more in reality. Of course, we know that if the disagreement goes forward, as everybody hopes, of course, we need peace. The ceasefire is not going to end with the military presence from both sides. So the Ukrainians should keep the needs, the armed force needs in the front line, of course, at least, because this plan is not the end of the end of the war. As you know, it's a kind of conditions for a ceasefire, and after a lot of things have to be discussed, including the possible exchange of territories. Minimal exchange, of course, but it's something that should address. And nobody can say us that the war will not reopen again. So it's the Ukrainians have to have the minimum capabilities in present for deterrence, of course, and to fight if Russia can come back again.
Also, General Sironia, how much leverage does Washington currently have over Kiev's negotiating position, given Ukraine's dependence on U.S. security and financial support?
For the time being, more security support than financial support, because we know that almost all the things the military assets that the United States it's deploying will be paid or are going to be paid by the Europeans. So it's the leverage. What can I say? This the red lines for Ukraine, we know, is to accept the handover of the territories permanently to Russia is something that is not acceptable. Of course, the de facto situation has to be accepted, of course, and discussed in the future how to recover them by diplomatic means. That's what Ukraine said. and that is it's a no-go. The other is the sovereignty aspects issues, saying that the first plan spoke about the elections in 100 days. Something it's impossible to do. The number of people in the armed forces, the types of military assets where they should be placed outside Ukraine, things like that are not acceptable to us. So, of course, we know that Donald Trump has some links with the Russians. So let's see, because this proposal that is going to sort out here in Geneva will be not the end of this. So the Russians have to come back again to discuss the issue. Let's see if Donald Trump, at this point in time, buy the proposal of the Europeans and the Ukrainians, of course, but leverage its limit. So when we spoke about the future of the countries and the people of Ukraine, the Ukrainians have the last word. So and the last word is from Ukrainians. If they want to keep fighting for their own rights, who's going to oppose that? What the maximum that United States can do, it's not support Ukraine anymore, and that in that situation will be difficult, but Europeans have to do that.
And also, how might Ukraine's domestic politics react to any concessions, especially regarding territory or military restrictions?
You know that the Ukraine has constitutional restraints in the giving the territories. So it's something that, even in the possibility that I don't believe that is going to happen, of to end some territories, the constitution should be changed, and that is a process that is very, very complex, as we know. So that's one of the points. The other point, I suppose, we know that the political environment in Ukraine is its tensions, but I suppose that when we speak about sovereignty, independence, territories, almost all the Ukrainians are in the same side. They don't want to give back territories, and they want to be an independent country in the future, European country, and with security guarantees from allies that they need.
European Union leaders met on the sidelines of a summit with the African Union in Luanda to discuss peace negotiations in Ukraine. The informal meeting in the Angolan capital comes as the United States and Ukraine pressed on with talks in Switzerland to come up with a mutually acceptable peace plan. The European Union said the meeting in Luanda reaffirmed that bloc is united in their support of Ukraine. European Union ministers are looking to urge top U.S. trade officials to cut tariffs on steel and remove them on goods such as wine and spirits. The EU ministers plan to discuss pressing trade issues, including Chinese rare earth and cheap export restrictions. Under a July EU-US trade deal, the United States set 15% tariffs on most EU goods, while the European Union agreed to remove many of its duties on US imports. Tensions between India and Pakistan have escalated after Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh made remarks suggesting the province of Sindh could return to India, prompting a strong condemnation from Islamabad. Pakistan called the comments provocative and revisionist.
Pakistan has sharply condemned recent comments by India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, after he suggested that Sindh, currently part of Pakistan, could return to India in the future. Islamabad described the remarks as delusional and dangerously revisionist, accusing New Delhi of promoting an expansionist Hindutva narrative and threatening regional stability.
Today, the land of Sindh may not be a part of India, but civilizationally, Sindh will always be a part of India. And as far as land is concerned, borders can change. Who knows? Tomorrow, Sindh may return to India again.
Singh also defended India's citizenship legislation, saying it aimed to support displaced non-Muslim communities who fled to India after partition.
We enacted the necessary laws to grant them proper citizenship. The bill was prepared, I introduced it in the Lok Sabha, and it was passed there.
Pakistan, however, says the statements violate international law and recognised borders. In a strongly worded response, Islamabad urged India to stop provocative rhetoric and instead address human rights concerns at home, reiterating that Pakistan will safeguard its sovereignty and remains committed to resolving outstanding disputes, including Jammu and Kashmir, through international norms.
Over to Pakistan, where gunmen have attacked a paramilitary force headquarters in Peshawar this morning. The complex was targeted by 3 suicide bombers, killing 3 people. Police say the attackers opened fire as they forced their way into the headquarters before blowing themselves up inside. Law enforcement has cordoned off the area. The headquarters is a densely populated neighborhood. No militant group has claimed responsibility so far. Now, Israel has confirmed it carried out a targeted airstrike in southern Beirut in Lebanon on Sunday, killing a senior Hezbollah commander, Haytham Ali Tabtabai. It's despite a U.S.-brokered ceasefire that was made a year ago. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel would not allow Hezbollah to rebuild its forces and that he expected the Lebanese government to fulfill its obligation to disarm Hezbollah.
Five people have been killed in Lebanon, including a Hezbollah top military official, Haytham Ali Tabtabai, the acting chief of staff of the Iran-backed group. It's after an Israeli airstrike hit an apartment block in a southern suburb of Beirut on Sunday. Lebanon's health ministry said about 28 people were also wounded. Israel confirmed it carried out the targeted hit, the first on the outskirts of the Lebanese capital in months. Hezbollah also confirms the information. In a televised statement on Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel would not allow Hezbollah to rebuild its forces.
I thank the IDF and the security forces who carried out a professional, precise and successful operation today. The policy I lead is crystal clear. Under my leadership, the State of Israel will not allow Hezbollah to rebuild its power, and we will not allow it to return to pose a threat to the State of Israel. I expect the Lebanese government to fulfill its commitment to disarm Hezbollah.
Tabatabai is the most senior Hezbollah commander to be killed by Israel since the start of a ceasefire last November, aimed at ending more than a year of hostilities between the two. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun is calling for the international community to intervene and stop the strikes, saying Israel's actions violate the agreement that ended 13 months of conflict.
Over to Africa now, where in Nigeria's northwest, 50 students escaped their captors and have been reunited with their parents. It comes after hundreds of school children and staff went missing on Friday. Families, security forces and religious leaders are calling for urgent action as the search for the remaining missing girls continues.
More than 300 students and teachers remain missing after one of Nigeria's largest mass school kidnappings, officials and church leaders said on Sunday. Gunmen raided St. Mary's Catholic School in Niger State on Friday, seizing around 315 children and staff, according to the Christian Association of Nigeria. 50 pupils later escaped and reunited with their families. A major military search is underway, and all schools in the area have been ordered to close. Security forces continue to comb forests and remote routes as families wait for news of their children. In Abuja, residents said the rising insecurity has made daily life dangerous and unsettling.
I don't think anybody feels safe. aside me, I don't think anybody feels safe for what is happening in Nigeria presently, because the kidnapping, the bandits everywhere, the killing, everybody is so scared. Even to sleep, if you are sleeping now, I don't think people are sleeping with their eyes closed. If you hear any noise anywhere, you just wake up, because everywhere is not safe in Nigeria presently.
I think the government should try by all means to adopt a system whereby there will be security agencies that will be released to churches, schools, and other infrastructures that at least the people can be safe when they are around their place of duty and workplaces.
Pope Leo XIV has appealed for the immediate release of the hostages, saying he felt great pain for the young people abducted and their anguished families. The St Mary's attack comes days after 25 girls were kidnapped in Kebbi State, and before that, worshippers were seized in Kwara State. Authorities say bandit groups often target poorly protected boarding schools for ransom.
Now, the G20 summit has officially wrapped up, and South Africa is marking an historic moment as the first African nation to host the event. President Cyril Ramaphosa celebrated the swift adoption of the 122-point Leaders' Declaration focused on multilateralism, climate action, debt relief, plus a number of other key issues. It's despite opposition from the United States, which refused to participate and had earlier warned it would not accept any consensus without its approval. Now, with the United States set to assume the G20 presidency next, a dispute over diplomatic protocol continues. South Africa says the handover will go ahead.
This G20 Leaders Summit has a response.
After the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Stay tuned.
Unfiltered news and analysis from the region and beyond. From Washington to Beijing, Tehran to Kabul, to Tbilisi to Tashkent. Hello, I'm Jay. Challenges.
Today is the third.
We're with you 24/7, taking you live to the front lines of the day's biggest stories. Welcome to Gabala.
I'm here.
Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Hello, we're reporting on the shape of November.
From Paris,
Dar es Salaam, Tel Aviv,
Washington,
London,
Moscow,
Kyiv, Berlin,
Rio de Janeiro, Beijing,
Bangkok, Tbilisi,
Tashkent,
Almaty, Kazakhstan,
Port Sudan, Tehran,
Islamabad, Istanbul,
Kabul, ANU.
Welcome back to A News. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Regional diplomacy is accelerating as tensions between Afghanistan and Pakistan continue to rise. Iran says it's now consulting closely with a number of countries in an effort to reduce friction between Kabul and Islamabad. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more details from Kabul.
Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Beghai confirmed that Iran has been in talks with Russia, Qatar, Turkey, and several other regional players. He says Iran will keep pushing for what he calls an appropriate regional framework to address the disputes. Turkey is also stepping up its involvement. A high-level Turkish delegation, including the country's intelligence chief and several ministers, is expected in Islamabad this week. Ankara says it hopes to help ease tensions, which have intensified after the failure of a third round of talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Russia and several other states have also expressed a readiness to mediate. But for now, it remains unclear whether these regional initiatives will be enough to break the deadlock. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar met with Kaya Kailas, the European Union's High Representative for Foreign Affairs, as the 7th round of EU-Pakistan strategic dialogue gets underway. According to Pakistan's Foreign Ministry, Islamabad reiterated its commitment to peace, regional stability, and resolving tensions with Afghanistan through dialogue. Kabul was urged to take what officials called a constructive role in counter-terrorism efforts. Both sides voiced support for a stable and self-reliant Afghanistan, aligned with the UN-led Doha process and the pledges made by Afghanistan to the international community. The European Union also emphasized the need for Afghan migrants in Pakistan to return home safely, with dignity and in line with international standards. As diplomatic activity intensifies across the region, all eyes remain on whether these efforts can help lower tensions between Islamabad and Kabul. Tamim Bahiz in Kabul for A News.
Iran has accused the United States of lacking a serious approach to talks on the country's nuclear program. Speaking in Tehran on Sunday, Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai said Washington's actions contradict its claims about wanting negotiations, adding that the U.S. approach is based on pressure and imposition, not mutual benefit. He noted that Iran had earlier reached an understanding with the International Atomic Energy Agency on future cooperation, but said Britain, France and Germany disrupted progress at the IAEA Board of Governors meeting. An Azerbaijani-Turkish think tank forum has wrapped up in Shusha. The event gathered leading analysts, scholars and policy experts from both countries, aiming to deepen strategic cooperation and strengthen joint perspectives on key regional and global issues. Orkan Amashev reports.
Hello, I'm joining you from Shusha, where today the first Azerbaijan-Turkey think tank forum has just now concluded. And in the building behind Shusha Hotel now, in one of its private rooms currently, participants of this inaugural forum, inaugural think tank forum, are actually now having a private exchange discussing the outcomes of the 3 panel discussions, as a result of which, as we understand, some sort of proposals may emerge and probably will emerge, and those proposals will be communicated to their governments of Turkey and Azerbaijan. After all, think tanks are not making decisions as such, but they're preparing decisions for their respective governments. That has been at the very heart of any think tank anywhere in the world. Today was a very interesting day. It was a one-day event, 3 panel discussions. I was moderating the very first one, where the key subject matter was the question related to foreign policy lines pursued by Baku and Ankara, the points of convergence between them, which are absolutely palpable, and they lie naturally at the heart of treaty-bound strategic alliance between Baku and Ankara, and also, of course, certain points which are less palpable and not as simple as they may appear. Naturally, in addition to the bilateral interaction between Azerbaijan and Turkey, which is multidimensional, multifaceted, which are based on the number of elements, including defense cooperation, trade, and so forth, including energy element at the heart of them. Of course, these two countries are coordinating their efforts in different parts of the world, in the Middle East, in Central Asia, in relation to many, many complicated matters. Naturally, Azerbaijan's inclusion within the Central Asian format and Central Asia 5+1 becoming effectively Central Asia 6 is a very important moment in the context of the Baku-Ankara ties. Effectively, this is essential also in the context of growing importance of organization of Turkic states, where Baku and Ankara cooperate, and without their cooperation, without a proper connection and coordination between these two countries, naturally the prospects of that organization will not be as bright as they should be in the light of the proper developments. Naturally, Middle East was one of the key areas, and during my panel there was a discussion surrounding the coordination between Ankara and Baku in relation to Iraq in particular and Syria in particular after December 2024. The question of the Palestine has emerged as well, and naturally Iran was one of the subjects, and the question to what extent actually Azerbaijan and Iran, which are actually developing their relations, they're trying to improve their relations, could achieve a degree of affinity necessary for their growth of trade, was one of the subjects. It was a wide-ranging discussion. A number of issues has been, of course, naturally discussed. Azerbaijan and Turkey are allies. Shusha Declaration is very clear. A Shusha Declaration is an international treaty, but it does not necessarily mean that Baku and Ankara share the same perspective in the same fashion in relation to everything. Within the framework of this, what parties like to describe as a brotherly allied interaction, there are certain nuances, there are certain differences, but of course they are naturally regulated as a result of proper coordination. The question of Armenia, the peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia, naturally its correlation with Turkish-Armenian normalization have also been discussed as one of the key points. Elections in Armenia, which is set to take place in June of this year, was one of the key points. And there is a question, of course, if that election does not result in current incumbent Prime Minister winning the elections, defeating his detractors, what will be the implications for Azerbaijani-Armenian peace process? What will be the implication for Azerbaijani Turkish-Armenian normalization? All of these things, of course, have been at the heart of discussions. As I said earlier, it was a very wide-ranging discussion. Think tanks are not there to make decisions on behalf of governments, but rather prepare quality decisions, or rather prepare foundational basis, argumentation for those decisions by those governments to be taken. And this forum, of course, was not different in that particular respect. Well, that's all for now. Orkun Amishov, A News.
Among the speakers of the forum was the chairman of the Center of Analysis of International Relations, Farid Shafiev, who shared insights on the goals of the forum and the evolving dynamics of Azerbaijan-Turkey cooperation. Here is what he told us.
As you know, Azerbaijan and Turkey are allied countries. We coordinate closely our foreign policy agenda. And today's forum is the forum among think tanks of Azerbaijan and Turkish think tanks, and the goal is to discuss and to share perspective on some foreign policy directions, especially when it comes to the joint action in the South Caucasus. Here we're speaking about the normalization process between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and also Turkish-Armenian normalization process. That's one direction. Another direction is the Middle East. Turkey conducts very active foreign policy in the Middle East, and Azerbaijan supports and also coordinates its foreign policy actions with Turkey. Another important area is Central Asia. Azerbaijan became C5, now 6 platform, and we believe that Azerbaijan can help Turkey to enhance its presence in Central Asia. We have a shared perspective, we have vested interest in several geopolitical and geoeconomic projects related to Middle Corridor, related to energy. Another dimension of our foreign policy is the relations with the collective West, let's say with the European Union. Here also we would like to have more coordinated foreign policy, and the think tanks is the important area where these issues are discussed and brought to the attention of those who implement policymakers.
Non-governmental organizations from across the Organization of Turkic States have gathered in Baku for their first joint forum. Delegations began the day with panels on the Zangezur corridor and cross-border cooperation. Let's take a look.
Currently, we're at the Gülistan Palace, where NGOs from across the Organization of Turkic States are gathering for the first time at a joint forum. Delegations from 8 countries have arrived, including representatives from Turkey, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Hungary, and Northern Cyprus. More than 500 participants are expected here today. 2 panel discussions are planned for the opening day, one on Zangezur corridor and regional connectivity, and another bringing together Azerbaijani and Kazakh NGOs. We'll be following developments as the sessions get underway.
Inside the Gülistan Palace, the Solidarity Forum of NGOs of OTS member states opened with a cultural exhibition featuring stands from 8 participating countries. A short video presentation introduced the shared history and cooperation among Turkic states. Before the panel sessions began, Hikmet Hacıyev, head of foreign policy at Azerbaijan's presidential administration, delivered President Ilham Aliyev's address to the participants. The morning then continued with the first panel, Zangezur Corridor, a bridge uniting the Turkic world, where speakers discussed the corridor's potential to strengthen regional connectivity and highlighted civil society initiatives supporting collaboration across the Turkic world. The second panel, the first Azerbaijan-Kazakhstan NGO Cooperation Forum, brought together youth organizations, community foundations, and civil society unions. Tomorrow, the forum moves to Nakhchivan, the site of the 2009 agreement that helped establish the OTS.
As the first day of the forum ends here in Baku, the program now moves to Nakhchivan. Over the next 2 days, participants are expected to take part in further panel discussions, including one linked to preparations for the 2026 World Urban Forum and the formal launch of joint NGO platform. The event will finish on Wednesday with a visit program and a final declaration. Sabina Abubekirova, A News.
Syria's capital, Damascus, is facing a severe cash shortage, with residents struggling to access money from ATMs and daily banking services disrupted across the city. Experts say years of conflict and sanctions have pushed liquidity to the banking point.
Long queues at ATMs, multiple trips across the city and disrupted networks are the latest signs of the crisis in Syria's capital, Damascus. Every day, residents face these challenges just to withdraw money. Syria is grappling with a deepening cash shortage, with withdrawal limits, stalled electronic payments, and malfunctioning banking services disrupting daily life.
We sometimes have to travel from far away and come several times, and as you can see, there's always a long queue in front of the ATMs. This happens for several reasons. Sometimes the network is disrupted, sometimes the power goes out, and on top of that, every citizen is allowed to withdraw only 3 times a day.
Experts say the crisis reflects the combined impact of years of conflict, international sanctions, and tightening monetary policy, which have pushed liquidity to the breaking point.
In reality, the central bank has frozen liquidity under the assumption that this would stabilize the Syrian pound. This logic simply doesn't hold. If you have 1 billion Syrian pounds in your bank account, but can only withdraw 200,000 per week, the existing economic system is being destroyed. All of these factors together are collapsing the Syrian economy and further destabilizing the market.
Economists warn that unless cash supplies are restored and the digital payment system strengthened, the liquidity crunch could spill over into broader financial and social sectors, putting further strain on an already weakened economy.
Leaders from across the region are in Uzbekistan for high-level talks on cooperation. Officials have outlined a new model aimed at boosting joint economic work. Our correspondent in Tashkent brings us more.
Tashkent hosted a high-level roundtable titled Central Asia Towards a New Phase of Regional Cooperation, where diplomats and experts discussed the outcomes of the 7th consultative meeting of Central Asian leaders held on 16 November. The summit brought together leaders of Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Turkmenistan, with Azerbaijan joining as a full member. Leaders outlined a new model of regional cooperation, highlighting joint network in economy, logistics, security, energy, ecology and water management.
The initiative proposed by the leadership of Uzbekistan to transform the consultative meeting format into a community of Central Asia is aimed at creating an institutional framework capable of ensuring the systematic implementation of the agreements reached. Each state demonstrates its independence, acting as a strong force shaping its own development in political, economic, environmental and other spheres. The Tashkent summit laid the foundation for a more integrated platform for regional cooperation. This regional format offers all 6 countries broader opportunities for dialogue with potential partners.
A landmark decision of the summit was the admission of Azerbaijan as a full participant in the consultative meeting format.
You know, our relationship is truly an alliance. There is no level higher than that. And you can see the dynamic for yourself. The progress has been remarkable. I don't want to single out one direction over another, but it is important to note that this process really began with Uzbekistan. The development of our cooperation with Azerbaijan, and especially the deepening of ties with Uzbekistan, marked the transition into this new stage.
Leaders supported a set of new economic initiatives, including the development of a regional trade and economic cooperation program to 2035, the creation of a common investment space and the expansion of e-commerce. They also highlighted major connectivity priorities such as the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway, the Trans-Afghan Corridor and the strengthening of Trans-Caspian transport routes. Participants proposed declaring 2026-2036 the decade of practical action on water use and establishing a regional competence center for water management. Speakers noted that the results of the summit demonstrate growing political cohesion in Central Asia and mark a new stage of integration, now including Azerbaijan as a full participant of consultative meeting of Central Asian leaders. It is Sevil Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
Kazakhstan is hosting the president of Turkmenistan as the 2 countries work to strengthen their strategic partnership. Energy cooperation, regional transport routes and plans to increase trade are all high on the agenda. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimurzana is in Almaty with more on the visit and what both sides hope to achieve from the talks.
President of Turkmenistan Serdar Berdimuhamedov arrives in Kazakhstan on a state visit. The program includes high-level talks focused on the next steps in the country's strategic partnership. Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan have already established one of the most extensive legal frameworks in Central Asia, with about 70 agreements in force, including the Treaty of Friendship and the Treaty on Strategic Partnership. According to official data, bilateral trade reached $555.7 million last year, and both sides aim to raise this figure to $1 billion, which they view as an achievable target given the current pace of cooperation. Energy remains a key area. Turkmen gas is an important source of supply for southern Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is also interested in participating in the 3rd phase of developing the Galkanish gas field. And ongoing talks between Kazakhgas and Turkmengas show that both sides are considering deeper collaboration in gas production and infrastructure. Experts note that discussions now include possible transit routes for Turkmen gas through Kazakhstan toward China, Iran and markets in South Asia. Transport links are another major topic. Both countries play important roles in the international North-South corridor. Analysts say the launch of the Southern Transit Corridor could reduce logistics costs for Kazakh exports to the Middle East and South Asia by 15 to 20%. This state visit by Sardar Berdimuhamedov to Astana is viewed as an opportunity to clarify the next steps in cooperation. According to experts, the two sides may agree on new measures in energy, transport routes and investment policy. And the final agreements will show how quickly the two countries can move from negotiations to implementing concrete joint projects. Fariza Kalimursina, Almaty, A News.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is visiting Muscat to discuss bilateral ties and regional developments with Omani officials. While unconfirmed reports suggest backstage consultations are underway on resumption nuclear talks between Iran and the United States, to be likely mediated again by Oman. Turaj Shiralilo has more.
Iran's top diplomat Abbas Araghchi met his Omani counterpart Badr al-Busaidi upon arriving in Muscat on Sunday evening, during which they reviewed bilateral relations, particularly trade ties, regional developments focusing on Gaza and Lebanon, and Iran's nuclear program. According to local media, Araghchi's visit to Muscat takes place as part of the ongoing consultations with the neighboring countries to review areas of interest and expansion of cooperation in the economic and trade fields. Quoting official sources, they reported that Iranian and Omani foreign ministers discussed regional developments, Israel's continued war in Gaza, and its recent air attacks on Lebanon. Iran and Oman enjoy traditionally friendly relations and are neighbors across the Strait of Hormuz, which is a strategic waterway connecting the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. In the meeting, Araghchi expressed Iran's appreciation over Oman's efforts and initiatives regarding the Iranian nuclear issue and explained the latest developments in this regard. Oman mediated 5 rounds of nuclear negotiations between Iran and the United States in Muscat and Rome this year, which were discontinued after US joined Israel in attacking Iran's nuclear sites last June on the eve of the 6th round of talks. Ever since, Tehran has rejected resumption of talks with Washington and demanded war damage compensation through the United Nations. Turaj Shiralilo, Tehran, A News.
You are up to date with the world news for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News for more.